So if a career in M&A is what it is that you're interested in, I've tried to provide some guidelines around what to keep in mind as you are approaching interviews and really thinking about your career in M&A. So for an ideal M&A candidate, I would say that for both investment banks as well as corporate development teams, um, the, the recruiting process is oftentimes ad hoc. I think for investment banks, there is a cycle if you're recruiting out of a school, so either college or grad school. But in corporate development, again, oftentimes they might pull people from investment banks, but otherwise, or grad school, but otherwise it is a little bit of an ad hoc process. But to really kind of focus on what it is that these interviewers would be looking for, I would say that if you are interested in M&A, there are certain characteristics and traits that I've tried to highlight that I think will kind of set you apart from other candidates applying. First of all, the strong financial analysis and valuation skills that are really essential to be a trusted M&A advisor to the business. I think that the bankers as well as the corp dev professionals are the ones that are responsible for really kind of going through that financial deep dive as well as being able to explain it at a higher level and to be able to understand how you come to a value and how you come to a price that you're willing to pay for a company is really kind of the key difference between what the investment professional brings to the table versus other people in the business. That said, there are also a lot of kind of personality type traits that I think personally would make an ideal M&A candidate, including being curious and energetic and really a self-motivated and self-starter. Attention to detail obviously is very important because you are while you are under a demanding and a fast-paced environment, you are executing deals that are really important and a high priority for a lot of the business executives. And being able to not let anything slip through the cracks is something that that really others are relying on you for. And then the last one, executive presence. That kind of encapsulates in my mind just the ability to take in a lot of information, distill that, and really be able to summarize what you think are important points when you are presenting to executives versus what are other points that you think are not necessary to bring up. And again, it is the ability to be able to think on your feet and to stand up and give a presentation to executives about the deal process, how it's going, and really what you think the next steps are and what you might need their approval for. So as you're thinking about interviewing for these roles, I've really tried to be concise here in terms of what I think you should focus your energy on. And I think that when people are interviewing M&A candidates, especially at an investment bank, it's really interest in the role itself and interest in the sector. If there is kind of a specified sector. I think in corporate development, there's interest. We are looking for interest in the company, why you would want to do M&A specifically for this company that you're interviewing for. And then, very similar to kind of aligned with the ideal M&A candidate characteristics that I listed, really just the demonstrated financial knowledge and ability and really comfort to kind of be able to talk through how you would value a company, why an acquisition may or may not make sense, and really just staying abreast of what's going on in the M&A world. And then kind of in investment banking, I think a lot of the experience that you get is really on-the-job experience, and I think for corporate development, oftentimes corporate development teams will recruit out of investment banks. So my last bullet around the ability to discuss various deal considerations really comes from, what have you done in the past? What sorts of deals have you had exposure to? And kind of how that helps shape, your approach to solving these complicated problems around specific deal terms. So a career in M&A is one that I think is very fun and exciting, and it also opens a lot of doors. I think the executive presence that you get while being on an M&A team is one that I personally have found to be most interesting and most rewarding. I would say that the majority of M&A professionals do have experience working for an investment bank, and that I really look back on my experience at JP Morgan as a great foundation and kind of training ground for me to really understand the valuation methodologies of coming to a value for a company and things to consider when you're trying to work through a deal. I mentioned earlier that a lot of corp dev teams do hire out of investment banks because we are looking for people with M&A experience. That's not to say that other corp dev teams might not require that. And again, it's really kind of company specific. But as I look kind of longer term, I think that M&A does open the doors to a variety of career options because you are looking at a business at a fairly high level and really getting a sense of what a company is trying to do through an M&A transaction or what they're trying to do to compete with their competitors. It gives you that strategic perspective as well as that executive kind of familiarity around how executives view these issues that I think sets you up pretty well for other possible positions that might be interesting to you. So I think that starting a career in M&A, you do have the option of later transitioning to a business development or a product role within the company. So that could come in a variety of forms. Either you're doing corp dev at a company and then you transition to another internal role, specifically for a product group, or you're an investment banker, you advise a company on a sale or an acquisition, and if you're acquiring a company and that company, if you're advising a company on an acquisition and they're looking for management to help with that integration and to help with essentially running that new business, sometimes investment bankers actually are pretty well positioned because they understand the company so well to kind of step in and try their hand at being an actual operator rather than an advisor. I think that in a lot of companies, corp dev is actually under the finance organization, so there is also an opportunity to transition to a finance role. Oftentimes, this is something related to perhaps a longer-term goal of making it to the CFO position, but I think that again, this is kind of a company-specific thing. And lastly, some people have started an M&A and decided that they really wanted to pursue a path of entrepreneurship. So being able to look at what companies are out there and be familiar with companies in a specific space could spark ideas of where you think there might be a gap, and therefore present itself as a pretty compelling startup business idea. I'm available to discuss anything that I touched on today, or really to kind of deep dive into any specific topic that you'd like. So do look me up on the eVisors website.